This month is all about fall vibes, some spookier than others. Fall is my favorite season, and I love to curl up with a mug of apple cider, a cozy blanket, and a good book. And what better book to pick than the Pride and Prejudice retelling that has occupied every other Facebook ad I've seen recently, The Heart of Bennet Hollow. And to make it even better, you all are getting to hear about this book 2 days before the actual release date, because this is my first ever ARC review. Welcome back to Spill the Ink with the Bookmark Bulletin, your favorite corner of the internet where books don't just sit pretty on shelves, they practically jump off those shelves with stories to spill. I'm Faith, your caffeine-fueled curator of chaotic reads, bizarre plot twists, and the occasional literary meltdown. From forgotten paperbacks to hyped-up hardcovers, I'll be dissecting pages with questionable opinions, wild theories, and an unapologetic love for the smell of old books. So grab your beverage of choice, maybe a highlighter you'll never use, and let's dive into today's bookish mayhem. What if you took Pride and Prejudice and plunked it in early 1900s Appalachia? That's precisely what Joanne Bischoff DeWitt does in The Heart of Bennet Hollow. And to kick off this review, I was blown away by how true the story stayed to Pride and Prejudice while still being its own story. I mean, I'm pretty sure no one in America in the 1800s was naming their son Fitzwilliam Darcy, so some names had to be changed. The Bennet sisters went from Jane, Elizabeth, Mary, Kitty, and Lydia to Jane with a Y, Lisbeth, Marianne, Kit, and Lacey. Fitzwilliam Darcy became William Drake, Charles Bingley became Callum Brydoff, Wickham was swapped for Westgard, and Mr. Collins became the slightly less insufferable Reverend Coburn. Instead of a family headed to the poorhouse by ways of laws of inheritance, the Bennet family farms land that they acquired from the local coal mine owner in a handshake deal. A handshake deal that stood the test of 20 years but won't be honored by any of the prospective buyers of the mine, all of whom come from outside the small town of New River, Virginia. William Drake is the only buyer who's willing to look at options that would save the Bennet family's farm and improve the lives of everyone in New River. But researching those options takes time, and the other buyers were willing to put in offers without even venturing beneath the surface of the mine. Lisbeth dreams of a life of purpose. She's not sure what purpose, but she wants to make a difference beyond a husband and children. Plus, she wants to marry for love, a difficult task in such a small town where she's headstrong, according to her mother, noble to her father, and well-read to her sisters. She dreams of more than life in a row house where she wouldn't even have space for a garden and living in constant debt to the company store. As far as the retelling goes, William Drake is far more lovable than Mr. Darcy in the beginning. Mrs. Bennet seems like a much better mother, and Mr. Bennet seems like a much more involved father. And this book made me feel things. I'm not saying I cried, but I did tear up a little bit a few times through the book, and there were multiple times when I was reading with a huge smile on my face. It was just a really well written book. There were two major plot points that were changed from the original Pride and Prejudice, but both of them fit with the early 1900s Appalachia setting better, fit the storyline better than the original plot points would have. This was my first experience reading an advanced reader copy on NetGalley, and I wasn't able to highlight favorite quotes the way I normally do. But I do still have one favorite quote from Lisbeth herself. It was as though he was trying to understand me somehow, but couldn't. As though we spoke the same language, but began at different ends of a story. So, easy 5 stars. If you like Julie Clausen's books, the original Pride and Prejudice, or even just wholesome historical romance, this is a must-read. And not only that, this is a squeaky clean romance that I'd be comfortable recommending to any teenager who already reads romance. The one thing about this book that I didn't quite love at first, didn't quite understand at first, is the pacing. It seemed a bit rushed and overwhelming, but after a little more thought, I realized that's how all of this would have felt to the small town residents. All of the coal barons coming in with all of their money, and it would have upended their lives. It would have been overwhelming. And so I really think the pacing kind of lent itself to that, to enhance that feeling a little bit. That's about all I can tell you about the Heart of Bennet Hollow without starting to give away parts of the ending. So here's another fall recommendation. Let me tell you about Arc Read number 2, Falling for Polkerran Point, a cozy second chance romance by Cass Grafton that just came out October 1st and is inspired by Jane Austen's Persuasion. 12 years before the present, while on holiday with her best friends, Ellie bumps into a shrimp of epic proportions. A shrimp costume containing Will, a struggling actor who's advertising the local aquarium. Their summer passes in a whirlwind of romance, but with the end of summer comes the tragically dramatic end of their relationship. Ellie leaves Polkerran Point, never to return, until present day, when a family emergency brings her back. And it just so happens that Will is coincidentally filming a documentary in the town at the same time, the town that he does not normally live in. Will they rekindle their relationship, or will they be thwarted by all of the things that are going wrong? Falling for Polkerran Point nailed the fall vibe, complete with a scarecrow contest. And I loved how descriptive the language was. If I could see things in my head, I just know that I would be picturing all of the landscapes so clearly. Also, I absolutely loved Mrs. Lovelace and her eggcorn or malapropism problem. I did have a little bit of trouble really getting into the book at first, probably because second chance romance isn't normally my cup of tea, and I got very lost in all of the interconnecting characters. But that probably wouldn't have been the case if I had realized there were prior books in the series and read those first. I did not realize that. That would have been a good thing. There was one curse word that was repeated a handful of times, and this wasn't quite a clean romance. I would place it more in the closed door, fade to black type of category, and the main characters are unmarried but engaged at the end of the book. Overall, despite the best efforts of Heathcliff the cat, Falling for Polkerran Point is getting 3.5 out of 5 stars. It'll probably get rounded up to 4 stars for some purposes, but 3.5 out of 5 stars. It was a good, cozy read, but I probably won't reread it, and I'm really not sure how often I would recommend it to other people when there's so many other fall books to recommend, like The Heart of Bennet Hollow. And that's a wrap on this chapter. If your TBR pile isn't teetering yet, am I even doing my job? Hit that like button, like a plot twist you never saw coming. Subscribe for more literary shenanigans, and remember, T is for scandals, ink is for advanced reader copies. Spill accordingly. Stay curious, stay quirky, and I'll see you between the lines.